everybody. It is 5 o'clock, and you know what that means. It is time for Happy Hour with me, Dr. Lisa. Thank you so much for joining me today. I see you. I really appreciate it. We are going to cover the rest of the blog about the angel in the tree. And really, I think I titled it My Angel in the Tree because that's what all the kids told me, that he was my angel. So sit back, relax, call in if you like to on Podbean. Ask me any question on social media. I am live on Facebook. I am live on Instagram on 2 different sites. If you want to see me live, you can join publicly on at Kids Can See Ghosts, Can You, on Instagram. Ask me any question. I am looking at my phone and can answer your question. My email address is kidscanseeghosts@gmail.com. So if you have questions and you don't want to ask live on the air, make sure you email me. You can also call me. My number is area code 765-205-1959. You can also reach me on social media. I'm everywhere. I am on Facebook. I am on Instagram, Twitter, Quora, and just about every other social media page that you can think of. I can't think of them all right now, but if you just Google me, you'll find me. So, thank you for joining in. I want to talk about this angel in the tree just a little bit more today, and then next week we will move on to the next blog, which I believe will be blog 10 already. So, this is volume 20. I must say to all of you that are reluctant to get the COVID vaccine that we now have full FDA approval. Don't tell me that you are still hesitant. FDA approval is everything, okay? And that is for the Pfizer vaccine. Moderna is coming up pretty soon. I actually had the Moderna vaccine. I am getting the third booster here pretty soon. Three. And you can too. I mentioned this to you guys again because we just shut down another classroom for the most part, and had some people have to go into quarantine. The Delta variant is serious, guys, and I don't want to lose any of you to it. The best way to protect yourself and your family, protect all of you, yourselves rather, and families, is to consider getting vaccinated. We need you all to do that so we can go back to normal. I am so tired of getting that COVID mask, the acne. I have some medication to fight it, but I'm sick of it. I'm tired of wearing a mask. I wish we could just get through COVID, right? I'm sure some of you agree. So, do your research. Read. It is perfectly safe. Don't listen to conspiracy theorists. Search for yourself, okay? People have all kinds of conspiracy theories. I'll give you a big one in the African American community. I'm not getting the vaccine because of what happened with the Tuskegee experiment, which is foolishness. Foolishness. That conspiracy is coming from individuals who have not read about the Tuskegee experiment, because if they had read, they would know one key thing: that the vaccine for syphilis was not given to poor Black people. So if you aren't given a vaccine, well, what happens? Syphilis spreads and it gets worse and it causes physiological problems, okay? Rich white people back then were able to get the vaccine. Poor Black people were not. They were not experimentees. It was a pure act of racism. Another conspiracy: the vaccination was too fast. Okay, that is not true either. SARS when Obama was president is COVID, or was COVID. The COVID vaccine has been in the making for about 20 years, guys. It is what they use to fight SARS. This is what I mean by doing your homework. Any any virus will mutate, and that's what COVID is doing. It has done that before. It's no different than the flu. The flu changes every year, which is why we have to get a vaccine every year. So understand that. This is not unusual. The problem with COVID is what? It spreads so fast and it's so deadly that over 600,000 people have died from it within our country. It is time for all of us to come together because we have a communal responsibility to protect one another. I'm protecting you. I'm protecting my family. Please do the same. Okay? Let's talk about what you are listening for, which are ghosts. These are all true stories, guys. None of this is made up. They are being told by me, a psychologist. I've been trained extensively in working with children, school psychology, and clinical psychology. Okay? These are real stories, these are true stories, and they are told from my perspective after working with so many children and parents who prove to me that they can see ghosts. Okay? I asked a lot of questions once I started to figure out that there were so many kids coming under my care who had this ability. I started to ask a lot of questions, okay? And the reason that I asked a lot of questions is because what is psychology? It's a branch of science, okay? The doctorate of philosophy degree is a research degree. It's a research degree. And so if you have that background, you definitely have some experience with research and you like it. I like it. I just don't do it now, but I like it. There's some things on my radar. So you start hypothesizing in your brain. Or what I started to do was to have questions in my mind about this. Why is this happening? Is there correlation amongst children? And that was a big question that I had. Another question was, are these symptoms indicative of something greater happening, such as, is this mental health? Okay. Another question that I toyed with back then, which I still kind of think about today, is something very simple. Is it true? Are there a group of people who could actually see ghosts and have zero control over it when they're young, so children? And then what happens is they present with mental health or symptoms of mental health. And then when they present symptoms of mental health, are we as mental health professionals diagnosing them too soon? And that was one of my hypotheses. Should we sit back and try to understand paranormal psychology much better than we do? Or do we just default to they have impairments in mental health? So what I decided to do was to use an earlier hypothesis, which is very simple. What's the correlation? You know what correlation means, I'm sure, because all of you are just as intelligent as I am. How can I match similarities in children? Okay. And so one of the things that I did, which solidified for me the fact that these kids could actually see ghosts, was I started asking the same questions to different kids over and over again. This is why in the blog I write about child A, B, C, D, E, and I think I'm up to F, right? Having the same symptoms of mental health, but also having the same experiences around me. So it's kind of like I use myself as a guinea pig. So if child A, for example, saw this angel in the tree, Would child B see it too without me even alluding to the fact that child A told me that there's a ghost in the tree? I mean, well, yeah, a ghost, but an angel in the tree. Or would child F, for example, have the same experience? There's a window to my left, which is where I keep looking. Would child F have the same experience? So what I did was I started asking questions. And it started with child A, actually. Child B was so eager to tell me about all the experiences that were happening that I started to get into a lot of detail with child B. So, when we talk about the angel in the tree or my angel in the tree, um, that was a consistent question that I asked all the kids. So, going back to child B, I started to ask questions about some of the things that, the angel in the tree was telling child B, other than some of my funny moments with my family. So, one of the things that was said to me, you guys already know, was that there's an angel behind me, there's an angel in the tree. But then let me tell you about a couple of other angels that child B saw around me, which were the same angels that the rest of the kids saw. So there was one behind me, there was an angel in the tree. One of my angels was on the building across the street, one on the ground, and I can't think where the last one was, but there were at least 5. The last one was somewhere outside close to the building. And so I asked questions like, well, what are they doing? Why do I have so many angels? What are they guarding me from? Questions like that. So with regard to, the position of the angels, the position was they were just guarding me, period. So if I was to walk outside, there was an angel on the ground, one right behind me. There was one on top of the building that was faced toward my windows in my office, so that angel could have a direct view of me. Which, if you can picture this, the window on the right, my desk was an L shape on that wall. So that angel could actually see me at my desk, if you can imagine that, from the window. And so they were all, trying very hard, I guess, to guard me. And when I would ask different questions, such as, well, is there something wrong with the building? Because remember, the little spirit boy was in the middle, the building, and most importantly, there was a reported sighting of a demon in building 3. Remember that? So I thought maybe they were protecting me because of something I can't see, possibly, hurting me. And that's exactly what they were protecting me from. They were protecting me from, according to child B and child B's family, mother and father, that's exactly what they were doing, which is why I wasn't supposed to go into building 3. But you guys know I'm hard-headed by now, so you already know that I went into building 3, right? Right. And was told plenty of times not to go, but that's another story. That's just stubborn me and Aquarius. Hey, I am what I am. So, those kind of questions. Now, here's something ironic about all of the kids. With all of the kids, they all told me the same story that I wrote about in the blog about. They didn't know the location because the angel wouldn't tell them, but my husband and I went to Antigua back then when my middle daughter was a baby. And that's the story that the angel would tell them without giving them any details. I guess in heaven, they know what's inappropriate to tell children, right? So they didn't exactly know where or this funny moment, but they knew something happened and the angel would laugh and these kids would laugh too. So guys, I understand I'm human. This stuff would blow me away. Blow me away. Because I would think, I never told these kids any of this stuff about myself, right? I would never say something that my husband and I were doing down in Antigua, right? So there's no way that these families would know that kind of stuff. So here's something else. Here's something else. I know you guys want to know what happened to the little spirit boy and what happened at that job, and I'm going to tell you. But let me say this. These kids knew I was getting ready to resign from this company. Now, to know me is to love me. And one of the things that I don't express at my job is when I'm going to resign or quit, right? These kids knew I had been thinking about it. And they said the angel told them that she's going to leave. So one day I went outside with child B and child B's mother. And the three of us were standing in the courtyard, which was by the parking lot. And this is a beautiful, beautiful company. And one of the things that they designed, which I love it, I love art. I'm a huge art fan. Some of you don't know that are close to me that are listening. But they had these sculptures in the middle of this courtyard. And the angel was standing near the sculpture. Now, the sculpture was much taller than me, much taller than most of you. I'm talking about a really big sculpture. And I think it was yellow and white, if I remember correctly. And we were standing there, and they both got quiet and started talking to something. And I'm like, what are you guys talking to? And they said, you're an angel. Well, which one are you talking to? They were talking to the angel that's right behind me. Remember, I said there's one that stays on me no matter where I go, except when I need private time. So I was asking them, well, what are you all talking about? Why is my angel supposed to be dedicated to me, right? So what is she telling all of you? And there were a couple of things. One, about my college years. Some of you went to undergrad with me, and we are not going to share those stories. But hello, this angel shared that she was with me then, and she has been with me since birth, and she will be with me for the rest of my life. She left me for a moment because, quote unquote, I was being stupid. Do angels even talk like that? I don't know, but that's what she said to them. Unless they just kind of interpreted her words or her verbiage as me being stupid. So things like that. There's no way they would know that kind of stuff. Only my college friends know that kind of stuff. And then what I did was I would take different things that I would hear from the kids, like child B, and I would wait. I would wait until I met another kid, another nebulous child, and I would wait until they told me. So I didn't fish for it. When these kids came to me, it was strictly psychological. Had nothing to do with them being nebulous children, because I don't know that I didn't know that when I first met the babies. When I first meet them, I still don't, right? And I would wait. And I tell you guys, that one in the tree and the one behind me was always discussed with the kids, to me, always. They would giggle and point behind me and say, she's behind you, he's in the tree, those kind of things. So what happened was I realized that these kids and their stories correlated, right? They went together. So I started taking notes. Started getting pictures, started documenting for myself. Private notes are not subpoenaed to court. So my notes don't have kids' name. Well, they have initials, and I know who they are. I knew back then and I know now. But they don't it didn't make me think that these kids were lying, because there were too many of them with the same stories, and I didn't tell them because that's not what I did. So most of these kids knew that I was going to resign. I'll tell you why I was going to resign. It had nothing to do with me not loving my job, because I have to tell you, I did. And I had the most wonderful director, and I miss her, and she could be listening, but I still keep in contact with her. And so she knows these stories, the majority of them. And I finally told Child B, yes, I am considering it. The reason that I was considering it had nothing to do with the job itself or the job description. I was working as a psychologist. And I mean, I love the field of psychology. But it had everything to do with how these kids were reacting. They weren't getting better, some of them. So, for example, all the kids could see the little ghost boy. When he would appear, they would have so much anxiety. They already came in with anxiety. So I had to do, double time in decreasing their anxiety. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is a lot. Okay. Now, I want to take you back to one of the jobs that I had with Child A really quickly. Child A started seeing ghosts when I first met Child A around me. So when Child A found me at the other company, Child A already knew about the angel in the tree, the angel behind me, how heavily I was guarded, blah, blah, blah. Child A already knew about it. But Child A wasn't getting better either. And you already know the story about what happened with Child A. So here it is, Child B being nervous about this little ghost boy. Like, he would just run up and down the hallway. These kids would see. Sometimes he was behind me. Child B's mother shared that the little ghost boy was trying to be protected by me. Kids feel protected by me, she said. So that's what this little entity was doing, because sometimes when I would go get Child B or some of these other kids, they would look around me, kind of like this, because they could see the little spirit boy. And sometimes I would kind of look at them like, what are you looking at? And they're like, he's behind you. And I'm like, oh crap. Where? Because I can't see, right? So if you think about it, just even if you're not a psychologist, just think about how nerve-wracking that could be. And then for the parents just kind of watching this. Now, allegedly, you know what? I'm going to scratch alleged. Scratch that. This place was haunted. It was. The staff even knew it was haunted. So it's not alleged. It was haunted. And these entities were not friendly. So these kids could see this stuff and they were really nervous. And I started talking about how I thought about resigning because I was just really uncomfortable about the progress that these kids were making, because they were always very nervous. So, and it wasn't just inside the buildings, it was outside. I remember once I was standing outside with Child B, and we were on the sidewalk, and I remember Child B's mother just pointing to the door, and actually the father was there too, pointing to the door going, ooh, ooh. But I'm not an actress, so I can't imitate her. But she was like, ooh, Dr. Lisa, it just does not like you, looking up at the door. Like, you got to stay away. Ooh, look, can't you see that, Dr. Lisa? And I'm going, I'm trying to see, but I can't see it. And I don't know if I want to see it. And she goes, ooh, you need to stay away. Ooh, you can't go in there. And then the father said, oh, he's right there. You can't go in there. That is an evil, wicked, spirit. You can't go in there. It just doesn't like you. And the mom was going, oh. Kind of like, if you can see me on social media, just the gestures like, ooh, you can't go in there. You can't go in there. And so I was standing there looking at them going, okay, they're talking about something that I can't see. So just the thought of, ooh, they're just kind of creeped out, like, it's a ghost in there and it's just evil. And Dr. Lisa, you can't go in there. It's just kind of like, okay, some of these clients aren't getting better. They're just not. And so I started considering all of that when it comes to, working with the kids at that time. And so it was different kids. There was always something, that they could not tolerate on the grounds where I worked. So, I would go to my classes because I was on faculty. I'm still on faculty, but with different universities now. And my graduate students would say, well, yeah, you're in an area that is known for its hauntings. So if you think about it, just forget the psychologist part of me, just being human. I'm kind of putting all this, you know, research together, thinking, do I even want to work here? Because now it's starting to get to me too. Okay. And so I kept hearing these same kids. Like I saw so many kids when I worked for this company, and it was in St. Louis. Um, and it was the same stories. So I started thinking, some of this has to be true, if not all of it, because all the kids reported the same stories over and over again, including the parents, who I call nebulous parents. The parents also reported the same things. So, what happened to the little spirit boy? I write about the little spirit boy. You'll see him again in later blogs. I haven't gotten to the point where I want to talk about him again too much, but I'm gonna get there. Um, the my own stress led me to go talk to my boss, and we cleansed the building. My boss knew about these ghosts in the buildings 1, 2, and 3, in particular 3. And we decided to pray because she felt as if that was a way to cleanse the building so that the kids would feel safe and secure. And she felt as if, the little spirit boy might go away. And so that's what we did. And Child B came to see me the following week. And I asked Child B and Child B's mother, have you seen a little spirit boy today? And Child B said, no, I have not seen a little spirit boy. And the mother said, I think it's gone. And I said, well, that's good. It's good for me too. And she said, I remember she looked up, which was behind me on my right, and she got quiet and she nodded and she said, you prayed in the building. And I said, yes, we did. And she said, it feels clean. And Child B said, I don't feel as afraid anymore. I don't want to see the little spirit boy. He's gone. And I thought, okay, prayer absolutely worked to rid this building of these entities. So ironically, I didn't have any more kids talk about the little spirit boy after that. Not one. Not one. All of them mentioned that the building felt less heavy. Now, I wouldn't go into building 3 to do that. I wouldn't do that by myself. I would have had to have other people with me because I was warned too much not to go into that building. And so I remember Child B wanted to learn to pray. And in that moment, I recall Child B's mother talking about, you prayed for protection. And I said, I did, because you guys can see this stuff. Other kids can see this stuff. I can't see this stuff. And then she said, well, when you prayed, some of your angels left. And I said, well, Where did they go? She's like, they're in heaven, dummy. She's like, they went to go tell God your message. I said, is that how he gets the messages? I mean, it does sound dumb, but when you can't see this stuff yourself and you only hear about it or learn about it, from people here on earth, it's like, do they do that? And she's like, yes. So child B says, your angel left to go tell God your prayer. But when we look around outside of those two windows, there are angels all outside. So I'm gonna tell you a little story about me since we're talking about angels. And I have not talked to this person in a while, since I left St. Louis. However, she probably has a feeling. She kind of knew that I was going to be doing this at some point. So I wouldn't be surprised if she listens. But one day, being me, I took one of my kids to a play date. And some of the ladies are like, oh, so and so can read palms. And I said, she can't read palms. You can't read palms. And she's like, yes, I can. And I'm like, no, you can't. And she goes, yes, I can. And they're all like, yes, she can. So Big Bad Lisa goes like this and puts her palm in front of this woman. And she starts to, whatever they do to read your palm, she starts to do it kind of like this. And I'm like, okay, what's she doing? And she said a lot of stuff that made me kind of go, how did you know? She said, because I can read palms. And then she said, she was reading it and she closed her eyes and she said, wait. And then she did it again and she said, like she went, I can't count your angels. You have too many around you. And this was just, COVID was last year. That may have been 2018. She said, you have too many angels around you. I can't count them. And I said, oh my God, that's the same thing the kids used to tell me. So you see how over the years I've had some confirmation of these things. She was another one. In 2018 was many years after I had seen my last kid for therapy. So when she said that, I kind of thought, I covered my mouth and said, oh my God, how did you know? She said, because I can see them. There are a lot of them. She said, you are heavily guarded. I said, oh my God. That's exactly what the kids told me many years ago. So it seems like I was supposed to start telling their stories, which is why I'm doing it. And so, just the fact that there are little things that'll happen to me like that. And I go, that's exactly what they used to tell me. I'll give you another example. Recently, yesterday, and I just lit up. I was talking to someone who unfortunately experienced 2 deaths this year. Hold on with the death. Somebody just asked me a question. Yes, there were plenty of parents who saw ghosts with the kids. Yes, it was. I'll give you an example. Child B's parents both of them, mother and father, were able to see ghosts. Yes, absolutely. And that is not the last time that I saw parents who were able to see ghosts too. And a lot of the parents could see ghosts since they were kids, just like the kids that I saw. And that's why I call them nebulous parents. Yep, parents too. Parents too. So just yesterday, somebody was talking to me about the 2 deaths that this person experienced. And this kind of freaked me out. So get ready. This person said when the second person died, a father, died. And I quote, "I knew he died because a cardinal flew right in front of me." Remember my blog about the cardinal in the tree? Or something like that. I can't remember the blog, but it was all about the cardinals. Remember, I told you guys that many kids told me that cardinals represent God's angels. I didn't say anything because these people don't know me well yet, but I started to smile, and she said, "I knew my father died, and I knew that the cardinal represented an angel." And I looked at that person and I went, hmm. They don't know me, so I don't want them to think I'm weird. So I didn't say anything. I did say I have a podcast. That's about it, but I didn't say anything else. New job, you have to be kind of, guarded. And so then, same person said, my biological father passed away. And we were, she was somewhere and pulled up and saw a bunch of birds congregating on a roof, right? And I looked at that person, and that person said, "I just felt like it was a sign of my father, my biological father." And so I prayed, and when I was done, all of the birds released. I said, "I believe you." I have some stories for you, honey. She doesn't even know all these stories, but that goes back to the blog that I had when I talked about, birds, how much the kids have told me that birds represent, different spirits. They told me the cardinal, angels, God's angels. Remember, demons can pretend that they're angels, white angels. You always want to test them. The kids say, God's angels, cardinal birds represent God's angels, crows, those black crows that we all hate. They often talked about those with regard to demons. I know a lot of stuff from these kids. Birds congregating like that, a death. These are the things that the kids have told me, so I would know this stuff. This is not stuff that I made up from the top of my head. And they talked about animals, other animals representing different forms of protection. I'll give you an example. I had a little Maltipoo who I just love. She was my baby. Child B actually told me about my Maltipoo. I didn't talk to Child B about my dog. I'm very guarded about my personal life with my clients. And it's really sad, guys, because my dog passed away. And I loved my little puppy. She was 13. I had two dogs. One died in 2017, and the one that I'm talking about now died in 2019. And one of the things that was very striking about the Maltipoo is that she stayed on my heels of my feet, like the angel that the kids talk about. So I finally asked the kids, starting with child B, do animals protect us, or do they protect us because angels make them protect us? You see where I'm getting at? Like, why are some animals so close to us? And you know what, child B, and some of the other kids, but in particular child B, said, your angel in the tree sends your Maltipoo around the house to check on you. Oh man, I said, really? That's why she's so close to me. I mean, I stepped on her like a million times because she would. Some of you can relate because you have dogs and cats, and So anyway, when I was, when was that? 2 years ago, my dog started getting really sick, and I was trying to find a little black kitten with blue eyes for my husband, or a Siamese cat, and couldn't find one. And one day there was this little cat that somebody threw out in the street, about as big as both of my hands, about 5 weeks old. And ironically, when we decided to keep this kitten, I said out loud, I hope this kitten didn't come to me because something's going to happen to my beloved dog. And guess what? Yep, my dog passed away. And I have never, okay, let me not say never. As far as I can remember, I was not a cat person. And this cat loves me as much as my little Maltipoo did. You guys can't hear my cat, but if I am out of my cat's vision, that little thing is meow, meow, meow. That's what he's doing at the door right now. You guys just can't hear it. And so the fact that this cat, I am that cat's person, I feel special. And we kept the cat. And I feel as if that connection is the same as my dog that died. And I remember Child B often telling me, your angel in the tree would tell your dog to protect you. So you see the kind of stories I would get. And there were other kids who talked about animals and the closeness that, my dog had to me. And it's just so interesting to me, because some of you don't know me, but those of you who do know, I don't have pictures of my family in my offices. I don't post pictures. I do it privately where the public can't see if I post a picture of my kids or anything like that. So there are no, I think there's one public photo of myself and my husband. But other than that, in my office, I'm very guarded. I have strict boundaries. I was kind of raised in psychology in alternative schools, and you have to be very careful with your private life when you work with certain all populations, but more violent populations, if you will. So I've always been very guarded. So the fact that these kids would know that the angel pushes my dog, or tells my dog, or commands my dog to come and see me. It might be the same thing happening with this cat, but I'm not sure because I have not met a nebulous child again yet this year. These stories that I'm sharing with you, I asked of these kids over and over again to get my research mind to feel better about what was happening. So when I finally started to feel better about what was happening, I said, okay, there's a connection here. There is something that we're missing in psychology. Maybe we should focus more on paranormal psychology and how it correlates to mental health. And that's what I started doing. Because it became very clear to me that there is something to hallucinations with schizophrenia. There's something to delusions with delusional disorder. There's something to psychosis. And here's a big one for me. And I am not a specialist in this area, but boy, oh boy, if I could do it all over again, I tell you, I would go into, sleep disorders. You hear about people with night terrors. You hear in psychology about people that have sleep paralysis. What's holding someone down from getting up at night? What's terrifying people at night? What's talking to people in a male voice that only they can hear? You see what I mean? So I really started to think about these things over the past 20 years and start putting them together. And I started doing that, and I started writing it down, and I thought I would turn it into a blog and a podcast. And that's what brought me to all of your ears. Child B and family eventually stopped seeing me. It wasn't because I resigned. It was because the family thought that they could have with the interventions and the skills and the training and the conversations, believe that they could help child B control the visions. And that was the challenge with the kids. They could see ghosts everywhere. They report seeing them everywhere all the time. So they couldn't control it. But here's the ironic thing about the adults. The adults could control this. So when they didn't want to see a ghost, they didn't. They told it to go away, or they prayed it away. Or when they wanted to talk to one of, God's angels, they would do that. And they knew the distinction. Child B's mother had explained that over time, these kids, like she did, learn how to differentiate between what's dark and what's light. For example, I got a good example of this. Building 2. Coming from the 3rd floor, I corrected this on blog 9. I was actually, or blog 10, maybe. I was actually on the 3rd floor, not the 2nd. So when we would go down to the 2nd floor, there was this really big, beautiful picture window. And it had, I can't remember the name of the design on the window. You know how I just can't think of it. Old buildings would have like the stained glass. That's what it is. But a part of it you could see on top of the next building, because in the city, sometimes the buildings are pretty close together. But I remember this one being a little bit further because it was separated by a courtyard. And I was walking down the steps with another child. Where am I? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. I might be on child I. So this would be child I, because this is one I haven't talked about. Well, we would stop on the landing in front of that picture window. And I remember this child would say, or said one time, "Oh my God, Dr. Lisa, look, look, look." And I'm like, all I see is the roof. What am I looking at? There's a dark angel over there. Look at it. It's got its wings spread like this. And I said, "I'm sorry, I can't see it, but tell me about it." So apparently it was on top of the building, and it was just standing there with its wings out like that. And I asked what it looked like, and it was dark. And it looked scary because it was dark, but it wasn't like the media or different depictions of Freddy Krueger and Jason and all those guys. It didn't look like that. It looked like an angel, just with black wings, black clothing, black face, black hair. And this kid was like super excited, like, "Look, look, look," like it was a 737 on top of a doggone building in the city of St. Louis. And that kid was not necessarily afraid of it. And that's what child B's mother was mentioning, that they don't understand how to differentiate between, what they shouldn't interact with and what they should. And another parent I remember said that's where the mental symptoms of mental illness come into play, because they start interacting with dark spirits. And so that's why once they understood that for child B, it probably wasn't necessarily mental health, although I worked with child B from that route. They felt as if when child B was baseline, they could handle the ghost part. Does that make sense? So for child B, we kind of separated being a nebulous child from a child afflicted with mental illness. I worked on strategies to improve behaviors. They worked on the ghost sightings. That makes sense. So this child is very memorable to me because that was probably the first one where I could kind of separate the two. I think now I'm used to it. So if I encountered another child like this, I could actually work with both on my own, even though I can't see ghosts. Excuse me. So I wound up resigning from this company and have kept in touch all these years with my former director, who's very familiar with everything. I need to ask if some of this stuff is still going on over there. Maybe I'll do that and let you guys know, an ending to this. But there are other kids that I saw before I resigned. And so, for example, the child that I just talked about that I haven't mentioned in the blog yet, that's one that I saw before I resigned. So this was a couple of years working for this mental health center. And then when I left, there were some more experiences from another company. So when I say I can talk to you guys for ages about this stuff, I can. I can. It's been 2 decades, and I have not encountered any nebulous kids as of right now. One last year. Oh, you know what? That was earlier this year, so 2021. And that's what jump started the blog. You already know that. So, one question I have for all of you: have you ever had an out of body experience? Because I have. Two. And this is something we'll talk about next week. Yep, sure have. One, because I was doing something that I shouldn't do. I shouldn't have done. And the second, I had because I was so shocked at some things that I learned from Child B's family. So we'll talk about those two things next week. And what I will leave you with is something simple. Watch out for those cardinal birds. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys next Wednesday. Peace.